Hi dear friends, this is the third movie in this series about the Chinese Spring Festival. In the previous videos, the first one we talked about the kitchen god and we talked about the general predictions for the coming year. Last movie I talked a little bit about the technicalities of the Chinese horoscope. And this year we're going to go head on into the predictions for the individual signs. I first thought like, okay, I do only a few signs, but now eventually I decided to do a lot of them, the whole lot of them, all 12 of them. As you know, it is a water rabbit year, so you can very much consider this rabbit year as if you're in a relationship with a rabbit. And therefore, because this is a water rabbit, you can expect quite a feminine influence on you this year. So if you are ready to open up for your feminine side, then this is going to be a great year for you. First of all, let's make sure that this is a year where your sense of taste will definitely work for you. Self-cultivation, refinement, civilized behavior, emotionally stable, watery behavior, all these kind of things. These are very good. Rabbits, even though they seem to be emotional sometimes, they are in fact not so very much into emotional aberrations. They are usually quite stable and they like to make sure that their environment is stable too. So if you count on support this year for your erratic emotions, the water rabbit is not going to be a good year for you. So you have to learn to control your behavior. That's the whole feminine part, and the self-cultivation part is about how you control yourself. So this is for all the signs basically the same. Also, one other part that is very important is that their human behavior moves between sense of adventure and sense of security. In some years we go more towards the adventurous, and other years we go more towards the security. Like the red year, everybody is hyper adventurous. That is also why the biggest disasters happen in that year. The rabbit year, on the other hand, goes in the opposite direction. The rabbits are very much into security and safety. So considering the world situation, I already said, I expect that basically things calm down a little bit. I hope so anyway, because the last few years have been terrible. So make sure you are ready for the next 12 animals. Prepare yourself for a life of daydreaming for the coming year. Use your fantasy and make sure that you appreciate the loves in your life, but it's not necessarily a year for commitments. And for this we have to ask ourselves a few questions. Let's just start from the beginning and start with the rat. The rat, as I said already, in the rat year was a mess, and the rat has as a quality that it goes ahead and head on actually in conflict. So this year you'll find just a little bit to butt your head against. The rabbit and the rat, they are not really very good match in general. So for the rat it's important to learn to play cool. The rabbit is quite political in things, so it is very difficult for the rat to find a hold for its confrontations. So make sure you stay aloof. Yeah, and you might actually get tricked into fighting yourself in this year because you find so little in your environment to fight against. So that is, of course, not easy. In fact, what might happen is that when you are confronting people and you try to set people up against each other, because that's something that happens in the red year, conflict oriented, you might end up falling in that trap and set everybody up against yourself, because people do not appreciate that. To resolve all kind of problems, invest in doing volunteers work and all kind of other kind actions, which is actually against your natural nature. When we talk about the ox, we have to see that the rabbit year expects refinement, and that is not something that the ox has much of. So that is very important to pay attention to in everything. It might end up being a very discouraging year for the ox, even though enough space is given for the ox to develop itself. Um, you might learn you might have to learn to be a little bit more political in your actions instead of being so direct in what you're saying and doing. It is not that your work is not going to find appreciation this year, because it certainly is, but you might very easily feel more like a tool than actually a contributor to the situation as it is. So this is one of the main problems why the year is discouraging, because it feels like you're not in control. As a warning for the ox, in a rabbit year, avoid signing contracts. This is major thing for the ox. Wait until you have a situation falling into its final place before you sign a contract. It might very well be that in your enthusiasm, you are signing up for something that you definitely didn't want, so you're going to harm yourself. So be careful. The tiger year is a little bit of a special case. The tiger and the rabbit, they share, of course, the same qualities to a large degree, and you can sometimes say that the rabbit and the tiger, they only differ in size. But the tiger would have done well in the tiger year to ask a rabbit for advice about how to prepare for the rabbit year, because it is for a tiger scaling down from yang to yin, right? So the tiger can be very overpowering to itself in the tiger year, and as a result of that, it needs actually advice from a rabbit, and for its plans to actually come to fruition, is very good to have that kind of advice. In effect, this can be a very successful year for a rabbit, for a tiger, but you have to make sure that you continue and that you stay focused on what you have to do. Don't shy away for objects. Like all big cats, they have this problem that when they see an object, they rather walk around it than actually getting over it. And you really have to go take these obstacles to make sure that you get away with things and that you get your focus done, your actions done. So your project all might be very successful. Financially also, you might be very successful as long as you pay attention to these little details. As a tiger, also make sure you pay attention to self-care. Don't hesitate to go to somebody to help you with your health or to support you emotionally with all kind of things, because that is just what tigers need. They need it all the time, every year. They need somebody to support them, and rabbits actually are best for that. Um, just find a therapist if you need a therapist. That is a rabbit. For all the rabbits in this year, this is a year where they have to plan for their future. Like in my case, I am now a water rabbit in a water rabbit year. I have to plan my future until, well, until either I become an immortal or until I die. So my plan is, of course, to become an immortal. So I have to plan my life. So how do I get to become that immortal that I want to be, and don't wait to start working on it. I have to start working on it from day one of the year, basically. The planning of the rabbit year this year is crucial because it keeps you on track for the coming 60 years, basically. So make sure that you understand what you have achieved so far, and that is your value. You can say that's your investment that you have made in the projects that you already did, and the experience and the knowledge that you have picked up, and use that knowledge actually invested into new projects and into your future planning. Whether you do this financially or whether you do with projects or work or something like this, people will observe you to see if you're going to be distracted, and at the moment when you're going to be distracted, then people will take advantage of you. It's not about paranoid or something like this, but the rabbits always need to be a little bit careful, because they are not on track all the time in watching what they're actually doing. So this is something that they have to do. They know where they are going to, but they do not understand the consequences always on how other people can take advantage of them. So this is something that you really have to pay attention to. This is a year where all your planning might actually become in vain if you allow people to basically pull your legs from under you. Then you end up with nothing, and that is not good, of course. Make sure that you do not focus too much on gambling. Gambling can be good for a rabbit this year. Rabbits like gambling usually, but make sure you take it under control so that you do not run together very much risks. And also keep track of your emotional life. Do not get blown away by all your emotions. For the dragon, this is downtime. The rabbit here is downtime because the rabbit and the dragon, they don't really match that very well. I already mentioned that before. Um, the problem for the dragon is that it will be more difficult in this political year to get the attention that you normally get as a dragon. Your attention you normally get by your presence and not so much by the quality of the things that you do necessarily. So just your presence already gets you the attention. But this year you need a diplomatic attitude and not an undiplomatic attitude. People this year will be very quick to put pressure on you to dampen the noise that you make. So it is very good for the dragon this year to focus on your skills and refine your skills to prepare yourself for your year next year. So next year is going to be a dragon year, so you can shine all you want, but make sure you have the best skills. If you're not properly prepared in the dragon year, then it counts for everybody. If you're not properly prepared for the dragon year, then the dragon year will quickly unmask you as a unprepared fraud, basically. For the dragon, also try to focus a little bit on art and artwork. If you can do artwork or artistic activities, meditation, and so forth, just to learn to focus and to stay coherent, and to also learn to enjoy the break and the quietness that you do not always only revel in your intensity. So make sure you also avoid getting entangled in all kinds of diplomatic conflicts. Snakes will this year have very good financial prospects. So for a snake, you will manage to do some things also that people can admire you for. Not only financially success, but also in your achievements. People can admire you for some of the things that you can do. But make sure that you keep a little bit of a low profile. So don't make a big show out of your successes and the things that people admire for you. Just keep them as a benefit in the background. Make sure you keep on working on your future, not on your present. That's very important. The fruition of your project goes first, right? So if you are working on projects, you want to realize things, this is not your year yet, but your snake year is going to be 2 years away from here. So this might actually be the goal that you actually work towards. Now pay attention to your tastes in the way how you cultivate yourself, so that you are not confronting people too much, that you make sure that you don't bite anybody, because that's always the risk with a snake, that if they feel threatened in a situation that they bite. And some snakes can have a lot of venom inside, as you know, or they can strangle somebody. So make sure you are always very careful in avoiding conflicts. And also in the way how you cultivate yourself away from conflict. In the horse during the rabbit year, you have the influence of the rabbit as a calming effect on you, and horses can be very restless. That means also that if you are very much calmed, that at a certain point you start feeling bored, and that you start pulling on the reins and you start going your own way. Make sure you consciously distract yourself with things to do around the situation that you're in, so that you do not get lost in society as a whole by going towards parties and enjoying yourself and all kind of things. And make sure that you stay focused on your future and not on the pleasures of life in general. This is something that the horses definitely have a problem with in general. Maybe you should get interested in politics, so that you can start thinking and talking about all these kinds of things and put your restlessness in this political thing. You might actually become angry about a topic and actually start becoming really start making sense in contribution to society as a whole. So make sure you keep things calm, accept your horse nature. That is a very important part. So take the reins of yourself and direct yourself into a direction that is actually beneficial, and not towards the distractions that the horse usually seems to look for. Horses need to be willing to be trained, and if somebody else doesn't train you, then make sure you train yourself. For the goat in a rabbit year is also quite a relaxing year. Goat and rabbit, they are normally by nature very comfortable together. There's no real reason to make any issue about anything, so we can be relatively short about this combination. Um, it is a year for refinement, for self-cultivation, develop your politeness in the way how you behave to people, because uh, goats can sometimes be a little bit impolite because they are too much self-centered sometimes. But behave and act as a professional guest in every situation where you are. That works actually best. Avoid getting inert in things. So try to avoid being passive, because for goats that can result in getting depressed. Um, that is not very good, of course. So make sure that you motivate your behavior by making sure that you play a role and that you stay in your role. The monkey in the rabbit year will have a ball, if they want. It is a year where they will find some more free movement. In the last few years, the tiger year and the ox year are not really easy years for monkeys in general, because they feel too much restricted by rules or regulations and having to be careful. So for monkeys, it is a year where they can handle things, they can manipulate things, they can fix things, and so on, in the way how only monkeys can do that. Things go wrong sometimes, but yeah, this is just your way. This is the monkey way. It will be a good year for you in general, but cultivate the best in your behavior to prepare yourself for the other years. Make sure that you get your lifestyle on track. If you have been doing studies and you have been slacking in your studies, push yourself to get these studies going so that you can make it into your profession, and then you can make it into your work, that you can grow into things. Make sure you find the right people around you to help you develop yourself in that kind of work, to make sure that you get the attention for your work and that you can get people to follow you in what you are doing. Over the years, you have been doing a lot of things for other people, and these people, they owe you favors, like a mafia boss. Just ask these people to give you a favor back. They owe you after all. So make sure uh, you use the social credit that you have built up over the times. When we talk about the phoenix, we sometimes call it rooster or peacock. It depends a little bit on who you talk with and who is the translator of the words from Chinese. In the tiger year, the phoenix has had a hard time, because the phoenix is very methodical in things and the tiger is very intuitive in things. So it is a little bit of a difficult year. The rabbit year likes methodology though, so the phoenix usually will have more results, as that the rabbit year will be very supportive for the rabbit, for the phoenix. So this is nice. Um, what is important though for the phoenix is to soften a little bit your edges, because the phoenix can be quite direct in its approach when in communication and stuff like this. So being a little bit more political in things is very important. This is uh, not a year for love for the rooster or the phoenix. That is very important to realize. It's a year for working, and that working can be very successful. But in love, if you are already in a love relationship, it will probably go all right. Yeah, but make sure that you keep into it, because you might very easily lose it also. Well, when we talk about the dog here, you can clearly speak about the relationship between a dog and a cat, for this year for the dog. You know how dogs and cats relate with each other. The dog is way too volatile for the cat, and you can see that the rabbit is a little bit similar. The dog and the rabbit, they don't really get along in the first notice. That doesn't mean that they can't build up a fruitful relationship with each other, because they can. I've seen it with my own cats and dogs, and I see it with my rabbits and the cats also in the same way. They have a similar kind of patience. Yeah, in Vietnam, they don't call the rabbit the rabbit, but they call it a cat, and that is actually a good metaphor actually for this year for the dog. Make sure that at the beginning of the year you keep a little bit of a low profile, you keep yourself calm, you allow the rabbit year to get used to you, appreciate you, and then gradually build up a better relationship with this year. Because then eventually there will be love between the rabbit here and the dog. That's very easy. They can appreciate each other, they can respect each other, they can work together, and they can share good downtime with each other. They can have fun with each other also. But it is always going to be a little bit tense. So this is something to pay attention to this year. Don't make any sudden moves. Yeah, make sure that you are careful with this year where defensiveness actually is the rule. Life itself will be a little bit defensive against sudden moves, so be careful. Uh, anyway, it is a great year for dogs to cultivate your feelings. So make sure you settle yourself in your feelings and build on your relationships that you have. The pig in the rabbit year does financially pretty well. It's the only one that I actually have to mention that they do financially well, because that's part of the motivations of the pig. No matter what pig you talk with, in the back of their mind is always a little bit their financial security, and they make more than that they actually need. So as far as socialism is concerned, the pig is not a socialist. That's clear. They are social as long as they need to get something, but they are not social at the moment when they want something. Your credit that you get usually is bigger than that you deserve. So that is typical for the pig, and it is not a negative per se, because it can work out very well, and it depends on your own goodwill, how you're willing to share this with your environment, to make sure that everybody benefits from that. So don't put too much weight on what you want. Try to put more weight on what people need in your environment. Anyway, when you are a pig, getting more beneficial benefits from your income is going to be more easy for you. So if you're looking for a job, or if you have a job, or if you are a company owner, it's going to be an easier year for you. There is a chance to get good benefits. But if you are not having a job this moment, or if you haven't invested your capital into things, it will still be possible to get better in this year. But make sure that you cultivate your successes very much so that you prepare yourself for other years. Um, there's a major problem though for the pig in the rabbit year, is that there usually is for the pig a person that tries to undermine you, and that is usually somebody close to you, and it doesn't have to be your partner or anybody, but somebody who is close enough to you that gives you advice. You rely on that person, and that person actually might not have the best in mind for you, because maybe they don't understand your actual needs and your actual purpose in life. Let's say it like that. So be careful with that. Make sure that you get independent enough to make your judgments separate from the people around you. Listen to good advice, weigh it, and take it into consideration. Don't don't believe in the things that you learned from people in the past all the time. The negative side of that is that you might actually get into confrontation with that person. So be a little bit careful if you don't want to lose that person. Don't put your nose into it too deep. Well, my dear friends, this is the end of this series. We have gone through different parts, and now we have finally completed our predictions for the individuals. I hope this is going to be of any use to you. I was having a lot of fun making this. It was taking much more time than I expected. So thank you very much for your patience. In case you have been watching all 4 parts, don't forget to also watch the Water God video that is mentioned in the place below, to make sure that you have a good idea about all these kind of things. There is inside our Patreon, there is a lot more from previous years. So if you want to dig a little bit, you can find more materials, and you can find something about every day of the Spring Festival. I will make a program for this. You can sign up for that. I will add it to all the videos eventually, so that you can sign up for it and keep track of all the New Year things, and gradually also move from there towards the year calendar, and start filling this in. This is of course going to be the Daoist year calendar. I have already other videos about Zhenwu, about the Siwamu and other people which are relevant for Daoist practices. I hope you really enjoyed this again, and thank you for watching, and I look forward to see you in the next video. We're going to do more about parenting, and we're going to do some things about neidan practice. So this is an essential part. Always get questions about that. Oh, and as a last, my dear friends, I wanted to add an excuse about my voice because in the last week, 2 weeks, since I came back from Canada, I caught a cold from my children, and as a result of that, my voice has been broken. It fortunately is not serious. The cold itself is gone, but the leftovers of it are still breaking my voice a bit. So my excuses for that, also for sometimes the snotty voice in the videos.